Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Jenna and this is Learn Academic English. On this channel, I teach intermediate and advanced level lessons for English learners who want to take their language to the next level. One of the things that I do in my job as an English teacher is help people learn how to write essays, especially essays that are for college or university level classes here in the United States. And one of the things that people need to learn is how to write a good introduction. So in today's video, I'm going to teach you a basic formula for how to write a good introduction paragraph for an essay. And I will show you a couple of examples at the end of the video so that you can see exactly what I mean by each of the things I show you in this lesson. And please don't forget to give this video a like, leave a comment, and subscribe if you find this video helpful. And note that if you want more practice and personalized feedback from me, I offer memberships here on my YouTube channel. So first, let's talk briefly about introduction paragraphs. The introduction for an essay should introduce the reader to the topic and tell the reader exactly what your essay is going to discuss. An introduction is usually about half a page long. It depends on the length of your essay. A longer essay might have a slightly longer introduction, but in general, you should aim for half a page. The formula that I'm going to show you today works for almost all types of essays in English. If you need to write an essay in class under the pressure of time, if you need to write an argumentative essay, or an essay that compares and contrasts two things, this type of introduction should work great. If you've learned about introductions before, you have probably seen this triangle that shows you that an introduction paragraph starts in a very general way and then gets more specific. What this means is that at the beginning of the introduction, you're going to talk about the topic in a very general way. You might start to just hint at the topic. You're going to be talking about big ideas or vague ideas. But then, as the introduction moves along, you're going to start to get into the topic more and more until finally the end is going to be your thesis statement. And your thesis statement is where you are going to start to focus in on exactly what your essay is going to talk about. So the first part of this general to specific idea is the hook. The hook is the first part of your introduction, and it's usually 1 to 2 sentences. Sometimes it can be a little bit longer. And I have a whole video about hooks that you can watch. I'll link it above. But basically, a hook is a part of your introduction that catches the reader's attention. That's why it's called a hook. It hooks the reader. And there are different types of hooks, but some of the more common and most effective ones are an interesting question that gets the reader thinking, a statistic, and usually this is something kind of shocking, a story, or an interesting quote. So depending on how much time you have and on the topic that you're writing about, you can choose which type of hook you think would be the most effective for your introduction, or you can try a different type. Then you're going to transition into the next section of your introduction, which is going to be a little bit longer, and that's the background or connecting information. What does this section do? Well, this section answers 2 questions. First, why is this topic important? This is basically like a who cares section. You need to tell your reader why the topic is important so that your reader will want to continue reading. And second, what information do we need? That's what we mean by background. What important information about the topic do we need to feel comfortable and continue reading? And we'll look at some examples of this in just a moment. And then third, the thesis statement. And as you probably know, the thesis statement is the most important sentence in your essay because it tells exactly what your essay is going to discuss. A good thesis statement should have these 2 parts. It tells the topic of your essay and the controlling idea. For example, if you write an essay about homelessness, what are you going to talk about? So homelessness would be the topic. The controlling idea could be the causes of homelessness or solutions to homelessness. Or you might do an argumentative essay in which you want to show why one solution is the best. So that's what it means here by controlling idea. What exactly do you want to say about the topic? And then, an optional part of your thesis statement, but a very useful one, is to include your key points. And what does this mean? This means show the reader what your essay is going to discuss in those next paragraphs. For example, if you're writing an essay about homelessness, you might say that homelessness has 3 main causes. Okay, so let's stop there for a moment. The topic is homelessness. What is the controlling idea? The causes. Where does homelessness come from? What is it caused by? What are the reasons for homelessness? Okay, then you can stop there, and the reader will then find out what those causes are when they read the essay. Or you can include the key points. So that means that we're going to show what those causes are in a short way, and then in the essay we will read more about them. For example, homelessness has 3 main causes: high housing prices, mental illness, and the breakdown of the family. Okay, so now we know what the 3 causes are, but we don't know any details about them. We're going to read about them in the body of the essay. So you can see how the key points are useful because they tell the reader what to expect in the essay. It helps to make your essay more clear. Now let's go back here for a moment and let's think about that same topic of homelessness, and let's think about how we might do the background or connecting information for that introduction. Again, we're thinking, why is this topic important? Well, we might give some statistics about how many people are homeless. We might show that homelessness is increasing, and for that reason, we need to know more about it. And what other background information or general information do we need? Well, we might give a definition of what homelessness is. We might suggest that it is a very significant problem and then give some statistics to show why. So for this section, you want to think that your reader knows nothing about the topic. What does your reader need to feel comfortable and interested and to continue reading your essay? Finally, don't forget that it's important for your writing to flow well. And so that means that from each section of the introduction, you need to make sure that there's a transition or some kind of flow from one part to the next. And I'll show you an example of that in just a moment. One word of caution though, an introduction is important. Why? Well, first of all, it sets up the reader for the essay, and it's the first part of your essay that the reader reads. But the body of your essay is the place where you discuss your argument, and that really should be more important. And so you want to be careful, because if you don't have a lot of time to write your essay, you're going to try to get your introduction done pretty quickly and then focus on the body of your essay. That's why it's so important to know this formula and to practice it so that you can write your introduction quickly and then focus most of your time on the body of your essay. I have seen many times that my students spend too much time focusing on just getting the perfect introduction, and then they don't have enough time to fully develop the body of their essay. And that's a mistake, because the body of the essay is where you prove your idea to the reader, or you discuss your ideas in depth. And that really is the most important part. Okay, so now that we know the 3 parts of an introduction, let's look at a couple of examples. So now that we know how to write an introduction, let's look at a few examples. The first one is actually adapted from an essay example that I found in a textbook quite a while ago, and I'll leave a link to that book below in case you want to check it out more. A young woman in South Korea might date 10 men before choosing one to be her husband. Her mother might shake her head in disbelief, but her grandmother would be shocked by this. In the past, marriages were arranged by the family, and a young woman had almost no voice in who her future husband would be. Once married, she simply accepted her role as caretaker for her husband and children. and did not expect that her personal interests would be recognized. This attitude toward marriage is changing in Asia as women look for ways to pursue their dreams and men support women's need for personal fulfillment. There are three main reasons women's expectations of marriage are higher than before in many Asian countries: a desire for personal fulfillment, increased independence, and a modern view of choosing a spouse. Okay, so this introduction has the three parts. So first we can see the hook. The hook is sort of a hypothetical story. It's a very short story, and you can see that it's hypothetical because it has these modal verbs might and would. It's an imaginary story, in other words. Okay, then it transitions into the background information, and the background information is this whole section, which, as I mentioned before, the background should be the largest section of the introduction. And what does the background section do here? It tells us what we need to know to feel comfortable with the topic. It gives us background. It tells us what is this issue in this culture. And it tells us what marriage was like in the past and that it is changing now. So it just gives us a little bit of background information to help us feel comfortable with the topic. In addition, it also shows why the topic is important. Who cares? Well, the topic is important because marriage is changing in Asia. Okay, and this is in the present, right? It's changing in Asia now. Okay, finally, we have the thesis statement. And notice that the topic is that women's expectations of marriage are higher, and the controlling idea is what are the reasons. Finally, we have our three key points, and those are three reasons: a desire for personal fulfillment, increased independence, and a modern view of choosing a spouse. Okay, the other thing I want to mention here is that remember that it's very important for the flow of the writing to be nice. And you can see that the writer made a transition from the hook to the background by linking the story to the past. So this in the past here provides a little transition from the hook to the background. Let's move on and look at the second introduction. At a party, are you an outgoing person or a shy, quiet type? If you consider yourself shy, you are not alone. Shyness is a universal characteristic found in all ages and cultures. According to recent research, almost 50% of people say that they experience some feelings of shyness in their lives. Okay, this person's name here, this last name, this is the citation. This shows what the source of this research was. It's probably an article written by someone with the last name Payne. Shyness refers to strong self-conscious and anxious feelings during social interactions. These feelings can result in increased heart rate, negative thoughts, and avoiding social situations. Since shyness is so common and has negative impacts on people, it is not surprising that psychologists are striving to learn more about its causes. They have found that shyness can result from both biological and environmental factors. Okay, let's look at the parts of the introduction. The first part is the hook. And the hook is just an interesting question. In this case, the question is not so interesting, but because it's related to, it's asking you, so to the reader, it makes the reader stop and think, am I outgoing or am I shy at parties? Okay, then we transition into the background. And how do we transition into the background? Because if you consider yourself shy, you are not alone. Okay, so this shows us that if you answer that you are a shy person, you are not alone. Many people are shy. Then, shyness is a universal characteristic found in all ages and cultures. See how the writing is flowing nicely? Okay, then What's this? This is a statistic that shows us why the topic is important. Who cares? Well, the reason that we should care is that almost 50% of people experience shyness in their lives. This means that this is a very common problem. Next, what do we have here? We have a definition. What is shyness? This is background information that helps the reader to understand the topic better. Okay, next, we have, since shyness is so common, so that's referring back to this statistic, and has negative impacts on people, it is not surprising that psychologists are striving to learn more about its causes. See the flow of ideas here? The first part of the sentence refers back to these ideas in the background, and then the next one refers to the thesis statement. They, who is they? Psychologists. They have found that shyness can result from both biological and environmental causes. Okay, what's the topic? Shyness. What's the controlling idea? Where it comes from. What are the causes it can result from? So that's talking about causes. And we have key points here: biological, environmental. Okay, let's look at the last one. People living without a house are like babies living without their mothers. If babies need to have their mother by their side to make them feel secure, homeless people also need shelter to make them feel secure to work and earn money to improve their lives. Therefore, nobody wants to become homeless. There are numerous reasons that make people become homeless: divorce, mental illness, drug addiction, poverty, and the housing shortage are significant causes of homelessness across the United States and in the country's most populous state, California. According to the article, California's Homelessness Crisis, in 2020, the number of homeless in California was 161,158, and the number of homeless is increasing all across the state. In Sacramento, it increased by 67%. This enormous statistic shows that the Sacramento government needs to wake up and do something right away to solve this problem. The city of Sacramento should offer free housing to the homeless for the following reasons: to improve the environment, be humanitarian, and save people's lives. Okay, first I want to mention that this introduction was written by a student of mine in my writing class last semester. And just reading it again, I feel so proud of her that she was able to write such an excellent introduction. Notice that the hook is a metaphor. In this case, it's a simile because it includes the word like. And this is another type of hook that we can do where we compare two things. So people living without a house are like babies living without their mothers. Okay, that's not quite enough information. We need to know why. In the next sentence, she shows why. Okay, then she starts to transition into the background information. Nobody wants to become homeless. Okay, so why do they become homeless? Then she talks about the reasons. And this information here is the background information that shows us why the topic is important, who cares, right? And gives us some background to help us feel comfortable with the topic, to know a little bit about the topic. So she tells us what are the causes, and then she starts to get more specific by mentioning that she's talking about California. Then she gives a statistic here. This right here is the source of the information, the name of the article where she got the statistic. And she tells us that the number of homeless people was this, and it's increasing. And then she gets even more specific by talking about a city in California and how the number increased by 67%. Okay? So this tells us, why is the topic important? It's important because it's a big problem and it's getting worse. Okay, then she has this sentence that helps us move into the thesis. This enormous statistic shows that the government needs to do something. Then we have the thesis statement, and the thesis statement is for an argumentative essay. She's going to try to persuade us that the city of Sacramento should give free housing to the homeless. Why? She has her 3 key points here. There are 3 reasons. As you can see, all 3 of these introductions have those 3 parts. A hook to catch the reader's attention, and the hook is usually 1 to 2, maybe 3 sentences. Then we transition into the background. The background tells us why the topic is important nowadays. That often includes statistics to show that it's a big number, so we should be aware of it. And it gives us a little bit of general information about the topic to help us understand the topic a little bit. What is shyness? What's the problem with homelessness? Okay, and then we start to get more specific and transition into the thesis statement. And in the thesis statement, that's 1 sentence usually that tells us what the topic of the essay is, what the controlling idea is, what are we going to say about that topic, and optionally the key points, which shows us what the parts of the essay will be. Okay? And the key points are optional, but they are very helpful because they help to make your writing more clear. I hope you found this lesson about introductions helpful. If you have questions, please let me know below. And notice that there is a link to a handout that you can use to learn this at home. I hope to see you back here again soon. Take care.